regularly scheduled meeting of the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors. This meeting has been properly noticed and we are now in order. We are favored this morning with Pam Wirtz, who is chaplain of the Hudson Area Community Hospital. And Pam, I'd invite you forward for our invocation. Board members, all rise.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting the HAMA group to be part of you in opening prayer. I wanted to say that when I thought about prayer today and asking the Father's presence, I thought about Scripture, and it was trust in God with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Think about Him in all your ways, and He will guide you on the right paths. Don't consider yourself to be wise. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. This will be healing for your body and strength for your bones. I thought about that scripture a lot in the opening prayer today. And to help us relate to the words and remember them, I stopped at the bank and got a new roll of pennies. And each of you might have one, some of you might not, but please put the penny in your right hand. And what is really the value of my bringing this penny here today? Is it the monetary value? It's only worth 1/100th of a dollar, and we know the dollar isn't worth as much as it used to be. Maybe we should look at its face value. So if you turn it to the side with the profile of Abraham Lincoln on it, we see written above his head, "In God we trust." That was our scripture that this prayer comes for His presence today. And it's worth a lot. We're invited to put our trust in God. It meant so much to our forefathers that they put it on our currency, and it still remains there. May this new penny you hold in your right hand remind all of us that we can put our trust in God. Would you join me in prayer? Father, thank you for the many ways you have loved and blessed our country, our world, the state, the counties, cities, and families. We are a nation that needs you, God, as our Father. Help us again to put our trust and faith in you, knowing that when we do, we need not fear, for you will help us. Give us your Father love and direction. Heal our land and our families, God, and keep us from evil and fear, that we may stand strong and courageous to know and do your will. Today we ask that you be present with this board of St. Croix County and the people of our county. As this board comes together representing your people, give them your wisdom, understanding, knowledge, power, and might, that they may serve you and the good of your people. May your love, joy, and hope fill this board's hearts, and may they see the fruit of their labors. Father, guard and protect this board, the people of our county, state, and country. We continue to ask, God, that you bless America and stand beside us to guide us with your light from above. It is in Jesus' name I pray and say, Lord, we love you and we need you. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you.
Board members, you probably should be reminded to put this additional wealth asset on your financial disclosure forms so that we are in compliance with all appropriate government regulations. The reason the screen has disappeared from your view is that we have some technical problems, and even though Roll Call Pro is going to work and Cindy can see it and I can see it, the projector is not working, and so the votes will not be displayed. But at this time, supervisors, please indicate your presence for the roll.
Chris, Tom, Dave Osnes, Andy, Joe, still need Chris, Brian, Dwayne. Yep. Chris, you need to confirm. Tom?
Yep.
Again, still didn't, yeah.
Well, we thought you were going to be late because you had indicated a conference call, and so apparently
Okay.
the software heard that. Yeah,
All right.
10% rule.
we are good. 16 board members are present, and we do have a quorum. Supervisors Kiesler and Dave Peterson did contact prior, and their absence was known and excused. Have not heard from Supervisor Hood. I don't know if he's going to be here or not. Did not hear from him.
He's gone. I think he's an
He's on a trip.
Well, he's probably not going to make it back then, right? Would that be?
I ran into him at the airport on Saturday. I was just coming back from my trip and he was just leaving.
Okay. But we do have a quorum. The quorum has been established, and we are now in order.
I move the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry,
Are you able to get that in now?
Yeah. Who's the second?
Second right back here from Brian.
Brian, second. Yeah. press
Ready?
it. No, not yet.
Press second.
Okay, we are prepared to vote on the consent agenda. For those that are watching at home, there are 3 items on the consent agenda. It is the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting on 7 August. It is the announcement of the date of our next meeting, which will be on 2 October, and then we do have one rezoning. It is an amendment to the St. Croix County Code of Ordinances on Land Use and Development regarding Chapter 17 zoning. Supervisors, prepare to vote.
Dwayne and Rick, you need to. Chris. Rick again, you're still voting.
Just confirm.
No, yes, or vote, I'm sorry. And confirm.
It worked.
No. There we go. Okay. Sorry.
And the consent agenda is approved unanimously. I'm not aware of any presentations or recognitions, nor am I aware of any appointments. So I'll call on County Administrator Pat Thompson for his report. Direct your attention to the memo that was distributed for this meeting. And Supervisor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, the agenda memo that was included with the meeting packet will be a monthly report that I submit, and actually what it is just a summary of the agenda meeting items. It tries to summarize in a very brief, concise, factual, hopefully factual summary of the agenda items. So if you have questions, or when you look at a resolution or an ordinance or something on the agenda, hopefully the fact sheet will, in layman's terms, summarize what action is being asked of you, either in the resolution or ordinance. If you have questions regarding that, please contact myself or Kristen Ziliak, who in my office, who helps me put this together. So anyway, that's just a reminder. Hopefully you get in the habit of looking at that in preparation for your county board meetings. Just a couple items to report on this morning. We are, as I mentioned last month, we're in the throes of budget preparation. We started meeting last week, one-on-one meetings with department managers and department heads and supervisors reviewing 2013 budget requests. We'll continue with those meetings this week and next week, and hopefully have a preliminary budget for your review at this time next month. So far, the meetings have gone well. There will have to be some modifications made to budget requests that are coming in, because at this point we're slightly above the target number which I've set, which would keep the spending at a flat level or even less than current levels. So there will have to be some work done on the budgets, but overall, very good job so far by department managers bringing budgets in that are pretty reasonable and very responsible. But some work will need to be done on them. Big part of that budget is, a big component of that is the health insurance numbers. We're still finalizing those for the employees. This is the employee health insurance. It's a big part of the overall human resources component of our budget. We're looking at ways to try to reduce costs and keep any premium increases to a minimum. There will be some, but we're trying to keep them within, contained within the overall budget parameters, and keep those increases to a lower level, as low as we can. Secondly, the administration committee, when they met last month, they were given a report by Clifton Larson Allen, which is our financial auditors. They summarized the 2011 financials for the county. There were a couple items pointed out in the audit that will require some additional focus and work by our finance staff and myself. And these were in the areas of general oversight, segregation of duties of staff, some issues with some reconciliation in terms of timeliness, strengthening internal controls, and operating efficiencies in those areas. And though they're not overly significant, they're not of major concern, but they're items that we as management need to focus on to try to improve how we manage the county's finances. But overall, the report was, in my mind, it was a strong report. It was a good report by the auditors. They pointed out the strong financial condition of the county, the strong fund balance that we are currently operating with, and our low debt ratio. And so overall, it was a very good report. But the job of an auditor is to point out where we can even improve. And so that's what they've done. And there were a handful of items that we will continue to work on in the new year with our new financial staff. If you're not aware, well, you are aware that we have a new finance director. We also have some additional new financial support staff in the finance office. We're trying to strengthen the bench of staff in the finance department. This is a very important part of county operations, and we need to make sure we're strong in that area, and I feel we have made improvements, and the auditor even mentioned that there has been significant turnover in staff, and that what they're seeing so far is very good. So it was overall a good report, but there are items that we will continue to work on. Just briefly, in terms of the Stillwater crossing project that is proceeding, there is the formulation of the St. Croix River Crossing Growth Management Advisory Team, which Supervisor Agnes Ring is a member of, along with Ellen Denzer, the Community Development Director. This is an advisory group that will advise Wisconsin DNR in terms of the use and the scope of the work regarding mitigation projects that will be an offshoot of the bridge project. There were considerable dollars allocated, in excess of $2 million allocated for mitigation The DNR will take the advice of this advisory team before they proceed with projects. Ultimately, the way I understand it, the DNR has final say, along with the County Board of Supervisors, in terms of how those dollars are allocated in terms of projects. And so I said, as I said, Supervisor Ring will represent the county board on this advisory team along with Ellen Denzer. They will meet, at least initially, they will meet every other month. There will be minutes and agendas prepared. I may suggest to the advisory team that the County Board of Supervisors receive copies of minutes so you can kind of stay plugged in to what this advisory team is working on. I think that may be helpful. I may recommend that to Supervisor Ring, that we, at least you can get copies. You don't need to participate or be at the table. Supervisor Ring will represent us, but you may want to watch how this project proceeds. I think it's important. Let's see, that's it for my report. Mr. Chairman, I wanted to recognize the HR department for what they've done in the last month. We used to have 4 or 5 separate county employee summer get-togethers or picnics, and the HR department this year, and I worked with them on this, but they deserve all the credit for the work that was done on this. They combined these 4 or 5 separate employee get-togethers and had one employee picnic, and had it in one of our county parks a couple weeks ago, and there were over 400 employees, family members. I mean, we hadn't included family members before. It was just the employees, and this year they combined, so there was one large gathering, and it was employees and family members and spouses and kids, and we had over 400 employees and staff, and we received lots of feedback from the workforce that how well this was received, and that we included family, and it was in a county park, and a lot of people said they had never been to this park. So Bob Heisey, who just happens to be here for another agenda item, he and his staff had the park all spiffed up, and it was just a great gathering. And the reason I mention it is because, sometimes we talk about employee morale and ways to try to improve it here, and I just want to call out our HR department for putting all the time and effort into that. And it was really it was a class act. There were a lot of great activities lined up for the kids, and it was just a neat family gathering. So they should be commended, and all the work that went into that, and Bob's staff and everybody involved. Lastly, on a personal note, since we last met, I've happily sold my home in Ohio. I finally have the family together, and Mary is here. And just last week, we are hopefully, knock on wood, if everything goes well, we will be St. Croix County property owners in Troy Township. We found a foreclosed property that needs a little love in TLC, but we can do it and get it back on the county tax rolls, and I'll be happily a St. Croix County taxpayer within a month, hopefully. So, and it's great to be, it's a good feeling after a year and a half of uncertainty, and I can't tell you how happy Mary is to be here and be back in Wisconsin. So things are looking up in the Thompson household, and it just makes the decision to come here even better. And so I can't emphasize enough the good things that are happening here with staff, and I enjoy being part of it. And we've got a good team here. Thanks.
Thanks, Pat. Board members, I direct your attention to the annual reports that are part of your agenda packet. These have been well done, in my view, and take the time to read these. But I also noticed that we have some representatives from the second floor with us today, and I'm assuming that your honors would like the chance to get at the microphone, so I will call you forward. Judges Needham and 1, 2, 3. We're missing one.
He's in trial.
Okay.
He's working.
Judge Black and Cameron and Needham. And I guess I can't call you Judge, Mr. Dunlap, but
The commissioner.
Commissioner, sir. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Judge Black. With me is Judge Edom, Judge Cameron, and Family Court Commissioner Steve Dunlap. In the back, our registered probate, Erica Nelson. As we mentioned, Judge Lindell is not here this morning. He is starting a week-long trial this morning. He's here in spirit, but he can't be here physically. As the chair mentioned, we did submit a report last week. I'm not going to sit up here and read the report to you. You don't need that, but please read it. If you have any questions, we are on the second floor. We're always open to questions, and don't hesitate to come upstairs. You know, I started practicing law in 1974. When I got to Hudson in 1974, we had one county judge and a circuit judge who literally rode the circuit between St. Croix County, Pierce County, I believe Buffalo and Pepin, and one other county. Dunn County, yes. And obviously things have changed since then. Everyone in 1974 would have predicted that St. Croix County was going to grow. But I doubt in 1974 anybody could have predicted all the problems we're dealing with, both at your level and our level upstairs. I don't think anybody would have predicted that right now we'd be dealing with methamphetamine or the number of foreclosures. Mr. Thompson mentioned he has a foreclosed property. These are things that come up that nobody can predict. Some things we can, some things we can't. Our branch, like your branch and all the branches, has to adapt, and we have to create new solutions and new problems. With your assistance, we created the drug court, juvenile treatment court. We also have the foreclosure mediation system that's in place to try to deal with those issues. And we're going to have more in the future. When we met with the oversight committees for the drug court and the juvenile treatment court in July, as judges, we pointed out that some Wisconsin counties have councils known as criminal justice coordinating councils. And the purpose of these councils is to deal with criminal justice issues that may arise in the counties in the future, and to try to deal with them proactively. We recommend that St. Croix County create such a council, but rather than limiting it to a criminal justice coordinating council, we call it a community justice coordinating council. And this council will be made up of representatives of all the branches, such as county board members, county administrator, county board chair, sheriff, public defender, district attorney, human services, corporation counsel, Department of Corrections, probation, the judges, and most importantly, the public, to sit down proactively in a spirit of collegiality and collaboration to deal with issues that are undoubtedly going to come up and try to seek solutions. We've done it in the past, and we recommend we do that in the future. We will get you that information in the future, but again, we recommend we do it. And you're not going to get paid to do it. We won't either. But we're going to get issues, and it helps when we have all these parties get together to talk about solutions. We thank you again for the support you've given us in the past. We look forward to working with you in the future. And we close by always publicly thanking the people who assist us, our judicial assistants, the clerk of courts who are in our courtrooms, as well as the staff in the clerk of court's office, the register and probate and her deputy, Mr. Dunlap, a family court commissioner, Mr. Heckman, our court commissioner, all our voluntary mediators, and the staff in the court commissioner office, and our register of probate, again, I mentioned, and also our court reporters. If you have any questions, please ask. We're open to questions again. Thank you for your support in the past.
Are there any questions, board members?
Just as maybe in addition, I think you know, I'm the chief judge for the district, and so I have a little better sense sometimes what's happening at the state level. But the Supreme Court met last week with our what's called PPAC, which is the Policy and Planning Committee of trial judges in the state, to formulate their budget for next year. And I've not seen the final result, but my understanding is that the proposal will be consistent with 2 years ago when the Supreme Court recommended that significant dollars come back to the counties through the fees and other dollars that are currently collected and go to the general budget. The Supreme Court, again, is on your side to get those dollars back to the county. It wasn't successful 2 years ago, but as I understand, they're proposing a similar approach this year, that a significant dollar amount, and I can't remember the millions that they're proposing, come back to the counties to help fund operations, not only court operations, but every other agency as well as department that deals with county government. And then the other thing I believe that they're proposing is an increase in the small claims fees. As you know, the dollar amount for small claims went from $5,000 to $10,000 2 years ago. For regular, and this gets a little more complicated, but for regular civil actions, anything over $10,000, the filing fee, I think, is $250. For small claims, I believe, and don't quote me, but I think it's under $100. Well, when you increase the jurisdictional amount from $5,000 to $10,000, there was a large number of cases that would have been large claim, large fees, that are now small claims, smaller fees. So the Supreme Court is proposing that the small claims filing fees be increased to offset what counties are losing because of that increase in the jurisdictional amount that was approved by the legislature. My understanding is also the court is collaborating and working with the Wisconsin Counties Association to present a united front to the legislature and the governor, and hopefully we can realize a better return than what we did 2 years ago. So that's what I can tell you from the state level as well. And Judge Vlack mentioned the Community Justice Collaborating Council. I think you know Governor Walker formed a similar body at the state level. It's a Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. And so it's our proposal that the county model something similar to that, only more broad range as opposed to just criminal justice issues. Many counties in our area already have them, but they generally were formed because they had jail issues. Eau Claire County has criminal justice because they were shipping inmates out. Many counties formed these groups because they had jail overpopulation. We don't have that problem here, so we think our needs are different than strictly jail needs, but rather more community justice issues that we could collaborate with all the stakeholders in coming up with solutions. So that's a little more information for you.
As was pointed out, I'm not a judge, circuit court judge, but I am a court commissioner. As family court commissioner, my basic duties always relate to the family. I do help out with criminal intake and traffic and some small claims once in a while, but my main focus is the family. And as Judge Vlack pointed out in the report that was given to each of you, my duties range from before the final hearing, issuing temporary orders regarding support, maintenance, custody, placement of the children. And then after the judges issue their final decision in a case, then the enforcement of that decision often comes into my office in the form of contempt matters and in form of motions to change support, change custody, change placement. So I deal with those kind of things. The number of divorces that have been filed is relatively constant, but the number of family cases is going up. And one of the reasons for that is that this is the first time this past year that the number of children born to single parents is more than the number of children born in a marriage. And so we're dealing a lot with custody and placement. Two people will have a child, 2 children, 3 children, or whatever, and then something will happen in their relationship. They will need not a divorce, but a custody and placement action. And in that action, most of the same things are handled as in a regular divorce. They'll come in and oftentimes they'll say, well, what about the house? It's in both our names. Hey, it's not my problem. I can't do that. You're the ones that did that. They'll have to start another action that'll be heard by the circuit judge as to how to partition their property, how to divide up their property, which means in a divorce we could have done that. In a custody and placement action we can't. So in addition to those cases, I've been doing a lot more child support enforcement, child support modifications, and working with the child support agency to hear a lot of those cases. So hopefully they get caught up and we can get a case on a lot sooner than 3 or 4 months down the line. So I've been doing a lot of those works. I've been keeping busy. This is a part-time position. I also have an office downtown, but I'm up here almost every day, and I enjoy my work. And as the judges, I think they all would say that they enjoy doing what they're doing. It's good feeling. Last week was a hard week. Parents didn't know where their kids were going to school this week, so we had quite a few hearings regarding that. And I know Judge Cameron had a week-long family case that just got done. So that's my report. Thank you.
I haven't noticed that Vice Chairman Larson's here, as always. And the reason is because he stops up, and I'm trying to get him to sit alongside me sometime. You're all invited what's called a ride-along. I pull a chair up right next to me. Any of the other judges would do that, and you can see what we do. It's like from me to Commissioner Malik, it's 15 feet, but it's 1,000,000 miles, you'll find out. But you can see what we do, what always goes on. There's not always things in the courtroom. There's things in the office that we have to do. But we encourage you to stop up. If you have any questions, visit us. And also, I concur with my counterparts here, is that we appreciate your support of St. Croix County. I tell that to people. We have a good relationship with the people here. The chairman, Mr. Stanford, known him for some time. We certainly appreciate the great work you do and the support that you give us as judicial officials here. So I want to make sure I acknowledge that. We all, of course, acknowledge your presence here, so thank you.
Board members, are there any comments or questions? Follow-up?
Yes.
Supervisor Yorick.
In regards to this council that you're talking, will you include the municipalities, City of Hudson, Baldwin, anything, or is that inappropriate, or don't I understand what you're trying to do?
No, you do understand it. I didn't want to limit the people who would be represented, but that's just the ones that came to my mind because when we created the drug court and the juvenile treatment court, those are most of the agencies that were involved, but municipalities can be involved, schools can be involved, so it would not be limited just to the entities I mentioned. That's a very good question. And the thought is that, for instance, if we're dealing with an issue that might deal with juvenile court, we may not involve people who don't get involved in juvenile court. Or if we may have a small claims issue, we may not involve the people who get involved in juvenile court. That's why we want to name this a Community Justice Coordinating Council to deal with all issues, not just criminal court. Any others? Now you know why we all have gray hair, by the way. We love our work, but...
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Again, I direct your attention to the other annual reports that we have here. The Clerk of Court Annual Report and Register of Probate. Read these at your opportunity, and I suggest that you keep these annual reports. They're good to refer back to from time to time, and there's been a lot of work that's gone into them. The first item of business this morning, board members, is a resolution approving an application for a 2013 County Conservation Aids Grant. Chair would entertain a motion. Motion from Supervisor Ring, second. Second from Supervisor Schrottner. Discussion.
We talked about this at the Community Development Committee meeting and had someone from the Sportsman Alliance come and talk about all the good work, and it is a lot that they have done to help many conservation-related projects all along the way. So this is a small grant, so the county contributes half. The grant that we're applying for would contribute half the cost. And if there's any overruns, I believe the Sportsman Alliance has agreed to cover that cost. But the work they do, I think it's a wonderful public-private partnership. If there's any questions or comments, anyone else from the committee?
You pretty much said it all.
Any additional discussion or question? If not, board members, I believe you're ready to vote. Are you ready? Proceed to vote on the resolution approving an application for a 2013 Counter Conservation AIDS Grant.
Joe.
And the resolution is approved unanimously. Agenda item number 2 is a resolution to advocate for for bus, commuter rail, and high-speed rail transportation alternative options through St. Croix County. This comes to us from the Transportation Committee. Is there a motion? Motion from Supervisor Peavy, second from Supervisor Osnes. Discussion. Supervisor Malik.
I was appointed to a couple of committees that relate to commuter transportation called the Gateway Corridor, and you see that referenced in this resolution, and the Western Wisconsin Rail Alliance, you see that referenced. And as a result of going to several meetings there, I detected that we as a board were not on record as supporting more options for transportation, and it just seemed that it made sense. There's nothing currently in the works. This is probably a long-range goal sort of thing. It's consistent with our comprehensive plan, which suggests that St. Croix County, well, it doesn't suggest, it says that St. Croix County should have available for its citizens more ways to travel around than getting in our pickup or our car to get where we want to go. And so that's the thrust of this, is that on a long-term basis, we should always be open to the possibilities of other ways of traveling, whether it's for commuting or it's for college kids going to and from home, or it's business people making trips to other places on this globe for their business purposes. It makes sense. And I noticed as I was looking at the comprehensive plan yesterday to check that this was consistent with that, that the New Richmond Airport is the 5th busiest in the state of Wisconsin, something I didn't know. So we're in pretty good shape from a airport standpoint, and the county has not been involved in the airport other than to sometimes have general words of support for things they're doing in New Richmond. New Richmond seems to be taking care of that just fine. But this would sort of get us on record in a general way that in the future, as opportunities arise, we should look at them closely with a view to having more things available for our citizens. That's what it's about.
Any additional comments, questions, discussion?
For or against, right?
Absolutely. Supervisor Kilber.
My concern is there seems to be a whole hodgepodge of things in here, everything from working with the Minnesota DOT, Federal Rail Administration. There's even mention of fracking in here. It just seems like it's way, way too broad of a resolution to say, yes, I support this. There are some items in here I support, and there are some here I'm totally against. So if I'm forced to choose, I would not vote yes for this.
Supervisor Yoring.
Are we making a statement by supporting this that we are just open to new ideas and looking at, any potential ways of bringing something in that would serve us on a whether it be rail, whether it be bus, whether it be electric trains? It could be something we don't even know of today, but is that really what we're doing? We're just saying, yeah, we should take a look at it? Am I reading this correct?
Chair will call on any member of the Transportation Committee, which is the sponsoring committee, to respond. Supervisor
Yeah, I'll
Beatty.
respond to the Transportation Committee. That is the goal, is just to be very general support of any new transportation opportunities that come into the future, that exist now or come into the future. And again, I'll defer to Buck if he's got more. Buck's been involved in it from the beginning. But it's just the support of any transportation facilities or opportunities that arise.
Supervisor Malik, did you have any follow-on to that?
Well, I wasn't going to, but I know that some people have occasionally been made disparaging remarks about motions that seem to be warm and fuzzy things with nothing specific in mind, or they're like voting for motherhood. I guess I have to say this is sort of like that. and that doesn't mean I may not make the same argument myself some other time, but this is intended to be very general and to look far off into the future. It's not pertinent to anything that's currently before us or will be in the next couple of years. But it seems to me right that we make plans, that we have openness to new ideas, that our constituent communities think about, well, if there were going to be a bus terminal in our city, where would we want it? And we aren't telling them they have to do that, but we're suggesting our citizens would be better off with more options and more choices. As there get to be more of us and it becomes economically viable, then things probably will be proposed, and we'll look at them then with a generally positive approach to them. That's the idea. It's like voting for motherhood.
I'll come back to you if there's no one else who wants to speak. Supervisor Schottner?
I just have a question. Has there been any studies into any commuter rails or anything, like a system going from Hudson to Menominee, for example, just a stretch inside our county? Has there ever been any looks into that? There has been? Cool.
Anyone else? Supervisor Rotino?
I'm against this at this point until light rail can prove to me that it's cost effective and profitable. I believe right now the last number I read in the state of Minnesota on that light rail project they've got downtown, they're subsidizing that at over $1 a rider. And at that point, it just doesn't make sense to me. We can't get the American public to take their hands off their steering wheel. And I don't know by investing in this that will happen. Thank you.
Supervisor Hoxford?
I understand that this is just kind of a statement of kind of support to research the concepts. I just don't see any benefit in it. Why would we need to make this statement? I think we'll all be open to the options that may come in front of us, but I would say let's wait till we see those options before we make any commitment. I also just have the sense, I might be wrong, but that this advocation could essentially, or at some point, cost us some money, whether it be in researching the options or whether it be determining those costs. So I just don't, and maybe somebody can help me understand the benefit to us making this statement.
Supervisor York.
The question I
Microphone,
want to ask
Supervisor.
The question I wanted to ask addresses all that. If, say we support this thing, anything that would ever ultimately happen would come back before us, would it not?
Oh, of course.
We would see it. So in other words, all we're doing is patting on the back, go ahead, do your thing, and then when you think you got something going, whether it be light rail, whether it would, we would see it again. And I mean, if your opinion still stood at that time that it was subsidized and all that, then you could interject into it at that point in time. But to not support it and not maybe promote it on an ideal level, I guess I would have you think of it that way. It's not costing us a dime until they come back with something that they want to try to do. So with that in mind, I guess I wanted that clarification that we would see it again if something were to happen.
Any additional comment, discussion? Supervisor Hutner.
I understand that high-speed rail hasn't been cost-effective for Minnesota, but at the same time, I think putting out there that we are open to other ideas, or even somebody coming up with an option of how high-speed rail can be shown to be cost-effective for the area, and the fact that any of those projects we're still going to say we still get yes or no votes on. I think the fact that just putting out there that we're open to these various ideas is something that would actually help us in the future, and actually people would start, especially from the cities, they'd start looking more towards expanding this way also. That's just my view.
Supervisor Oxford.
I guess I go back to my question, why do we have to tell people that we're open to it? Wouldn't they assume that we are open to it? Why would they assume that we're not? Why do we have to make a public statement that we are in support of it? If somebody can bring a good solid plan to us, of course we're going to be open to it.
Supervisor Malik.
If you vote no, you will be clearly saying you're not open to it.
Have we run the gauntlet? Anyone else? Then I believe we're prepared to take a vote. Board members, in front of us is an affirmative motion from Supervisor Peavy with a second by Supervisor Osnes to approve the resolution to advocate for bus, commuter rail, and high-speed rail transportation alternative options through St. Croix County. Are you ready, Cindy? Board members, proceed to vote.
Dave Osnes, Chris Gilber, Joe.
And the resolution is adopted on a vote of 12-4. Cindy, do you have any reports of correspondence or any rezoning requests?
I have nothing to report. Do you want me to announce on the thin clients?
Let's proceed then. Cindy is going to make some comments about the use of the thin clients that you have in front of you.
All I'm going to say is that the black cart that stores the thin clients at the government center is going to be in the county clerk's office. It's a better way of monitoring them rather than having them in the county boardroom. In most cases, well, for the county board meeting, we'll have them set up on your desks. For committee use, either the meeting organizer will take them and have them available in the rooms or move the cart into the rooms, I think, for community development, especially since you meet after hours. And or else you can come in and check out your Thin client. Each thin client has been marked with a district number, so we just ask that you use the number, your district number, thin client. And this is only for the government center. That doesn't pertain to Health and Human Services or Highway Department.
Okay. The WCA conference is coming up the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of this month, and we will have several board members that will be in attendance. I'd like to meet briefly after we adjourn with the supervisors that will be attending that conference, just right up here, just for a few minutes, just to go over some details.
One of those.
Pardon me?
Registration information, they have it on their
Right,
desks.
right.
Mr. Chairman, should we give the board a reminder? I know they have been, but again, about our change in November meeting date?
November 5th,
November 5th,
Monday.
Monday. That's a change. I'll keep saying that so we get it in everybody's calendars.
Make sure that's on your calendar.
Yep. That's day before. Yep.
Cindy is a bit involved on the election day,
Yeah.
as you can well anticipate.
Right.
And I encourage the rest of you to be involved in that day. Make sure you vote. Board members, with that, we have concluded our agenda, and we are adjourned.